It's time to make sports talk great again with Curt Schilling and Steve Deace.
And greetings. Welcome to The Blaze, where we talk sports. I am Steve Deace. He is Curt Schilling, Hall of Famer to be, World Series champion for Evs, you all. Whether you are watching today on YouTube or listening on the podcast or tuning in here on The Blaze, thank you. Like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. You know the drill. We put 25 minutes on the clock, get to as many of the day's sports topics as we possibly can, beginning now. So we have dedicated this episode, Curt, to spring training cliches in honor of this outstanding article written by, I want to make sure I get his name in there, Anthony Castrovitz from MLB.com, who ranked his top 15 spring training cliches. We're going to go through as many of these as we can in the 25 minutes we can.
All right, let me just say, I have not looked at this list. Yes. I have not seen it. So
in fact, you were even asking me 10 seconds ago, where's the list? Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess beforehand I can name probably 14 of the 15, but let's just go ahead.
And give us some examples of when this is right, because a lot of
I'm just happy to be here.
Yes.
I feel
if you're a baseball fan right now, you're trying to figure out, is my team going to be this year's Braves or the 5 years ago Kansas City Royals?
This is the Crash Davis to Nuke LaLoosh speech in Bull Durham.
Yes. Or how much of this is, crap, we're rebuilding till 2022.
Yep.
I mean, how do we know what's true and what's not, right?
Yeah. So what cliche in here is we're going to suck?
Yes.
I just can't tell you that.
Yes. So,
okay. All right.
The first cliche we're going to tackle, right up your alley as a pitcher. He got his work in. What do you think?
That's usually what somebody says after a starting pitcher gives up 11 earnings in like 2/3 of an inning. There's nothing else to say. You can't. Everybody saw the multiple base runners. They look like Ringling Brothers. And you can't say that, so you say, well, you know what? He got his work in. That's a good thing. That
is exactly how Anthony Castrovitz of MLB.com translates that cliche, by the way. Like verbatim, what you just said. That's why we're all laughing here, because we saw that, because you went right to what he wrote, actually.
Yep.
Did you ever have your manager? You knew you sucked when your manager told the press in the spring. Yeah, Curt got his work in.
Yeah.
You were basically out there throwing BP,
I used
right?
It myself.
Yeah.
I used it. Yeah, well, the important thing was getting my work in against AA players today when I gave up 7 bombs.
I guess we played 9 AA players. 8 of them are never making AAA, but I got my work in. Yes.
We used to go down. So I never pitched against divisional teams in spring training. So I would go down to the minor league complex and get my work in.
Yeah.
Because those guys are hacking. And there's no setting up guys and getting ready for the season. They're just swinging, and you can have some bad outings down there.
You were like Phil Hellmuth in the World Series of Poker when he goes against amateurs who are just going all in on every hand and not playing any strategy at all, and he's losing his mind. You went all in, and then he gets sucked out on the draw when a guy goes all in on 8-10 suited, and he loses, right? Yes. Next cliche, the ball's coming out of his hand well. What does that mean?
That's when you don't want to get overly excited in spring training about a young player, or you have a veteran coming back off surgery, and he's not. It means 2 different things. For a young guy, it's the ball's coming out of his hand well because he didn't really have that good of an outing. We hope he's going to make our staff, but that was nothing to brag about. For an older guy, when you're coming back from surgery and you go and do a rehab start and you give up 10 earnings in 2/3 of an inning, the ball's coming out of his hand well.
Everybody saw it. Everybody got a good look, right?
Yep. Yeah. Everybody.
Both teams agree the ball's coming out of his hand well. No deception there whatsoever. We all saw it. Yes.
Nope.
Things have a way of working out. Our next cliche. Decipher that one for us. What does that mean?
That is when you've got superstar prospects and a huge contract, and you can't get this kid to the big leagues because the contract is a big bloated impediment. Or you have 7 starters for 5 spots in the rotation, or 2 players at a position. It's the comment you hear from everybody when you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole and build a roster.
In other words, you're not ready to give an answer yet, right?
Right. No. It's generally said in a very good way. When you say things have a way of working out, that means you're working from a surplus.
I actually heard this morning. I was listening to Detroit Sports Talk Radio when I was at the gym, and Al Avila, general manager of the Tigers, was on.
Yeah.
And they were asking him about all this young talent they've acquired the last couple of years. And a lot of these guys are playing really well in spring training.
Yep.
And so the radio hosts are
a way of working themselves out.
The radio hosts are like, well, how do you balance out the fact that, these guys might be better than the veterans? On the other hand, you don't want to start their veteran clock so early that they hit free agency to the point that some other team benefits from their maturation. Yep. And that was kind of Al Avila's answer, which I took that as a fan to mean, if we played these guys now, we might win 75, 80 games. Yeah. But we're not going to play these guys now, and we're going to win 60 or 65 games in the hopes that in 2 or 3 years we'll win more games than that. That's kind of how I deciphered it.
I think the more important thing is when you hear it from a general manager, you're hearing it from a guy with job security. Because he knows he's going to be around long enough to hopefully see these things work out. And they do.
Next cliche. Any reference to working hard on controlling the running game, pitchers fielding practice, infield work, or bunting drills. Anything that's said in relation to anything involving those activities is pure cliche. Is that true?
I'm not sure I understand what would be the comment.
In other words, this is all stuff that gets abandoned once we get to actual opening day. None of this stuff matters. So it's just all filler.
Well, but see, so I would tell you from my perspective, those were the most important days of spring training. Working on bunt defenses and working on bunting as a pitcher and PFP, pitcher's fundamental practice. Because I learned early in my career from Greg Maddux, that's the guys that excel at those things will win 20 instead of 17. And so that was always I was always grinding through those drills as hard as I could. And I took a lot of pride in being able to field my position and being a defender on the bunt. I always, for good teams, those are hardworking days. For bad teams, it's just more time to walk around and the coaches to talk to the pitchers in the different groups and get a feel for guys. I mean, those are the drills where a lot of times coaches get to know players and vice versa. Those are the drills where, when you have base runners on, you're doing the bunting drills. Bryce Harper will be running the bases, he'll be half-assing around, which everybody does, around the bases, but those are more of a social setting than a preparation thing for some teams.
And I would say to Anthony, as a Tigers fan, never underestimate the importance of a pitcher fielding his position.
Tigers fan,
we lost at least 1 or 2 World Series because pitchers could not field their positions. In my mind
that St. Louis World Series was lost 100% because the Tiger pitchers could not field their position.
And then it happened in Game 1 against the Giants. We blew a lead there, and that was the team we had that didn't lose a game all of September. That was probably the best team in that run, and then they had a total meltdown after that.
I got that lesson early in my career from Maddux, and I never forgot it. And so those first, because that's all you do as pitchers for the first 2 weeks. You do PFP and you do bullpens. So I made it an effort to be first in the group, and you do it on 4 fields. You'll do first to third pickoffs. You'll do bunt defenses first, bunt defenses third, comebackers. And I would go between the 4 stations, and I would be the first one. I would literally lead my group around those stations, no matter who it was, because I always felt like I was trying to represent the staff. And if I did it at that pace, no one was allowed to do it at a slower pace. And again, I know for a fact that I could count to maybe 15, 20 games in my career that would have been losses or no decisions instead of wins if I hadn't been able to field my position or get a bunt down.
Does it also show you who took seriously their conditioning in the offseason as well?
Yes. Yeah. That there's no question because you'll see guys that are a little bit gassed before they start running at the end of a workout.
Right.
Because those are covering first base. When you do it with a 5-man group and you're continuously doing it in a loop, you're literally running a long sprint. And so it's another way to kind of say, okay, look at that fat dude. I mean,
I know it doesn't look like it on television, and even if, depending on where you sit in a stadium, it doesn't look like it. But I mean, if you're talking, the pitcher's mound is 60 feet 6 inches from home plate. That's 3/4 of a basketball court, of a full court that the NBA plays on, 94 feet. Okay, so let's say it's maybe 50 feet from the right of the pitcher's mound to going when you finish your motion to getting over to first place or first base, and the guy running, by the way, is he's going all out to run out a base hit. You're talking you've got to, after throwing a ball, quickly react, and then you've got to run essentially half a basketball court.
15 minutes continuously doing it. And the other thing is a lot of times the drill is done between that in-between ball where the slow roller at first, where you're going after the ball, you don't get it. You have to suddenly pick it up and sprint. And it doesn't kill you, but it is a serious, it's much more of a cardio than it is routine workout.
Next cliche, it's a great group of guys. It's a nice mix of veterans and young guys.
Usually said, well, I think everybody, that's said by every new player to every team ever. And
do they hand you guys a booklet, or do you guys just kind of just all know from watching each other? A cliche book?
No.
Oh, okay.
You just know. You can tell the difference between guys that have been raised to respect the sport and idiots. And generally this is how you do it. Nice mix of players is a team that isn't going to win anything. Young and old is a way of saying we have too many young guys and I'd like more, or too many old guys and I'd like more younger guys, or vice versa, because you're too heavy one way or the other. But you generally hear that from all the new players. You heard Bryce talk about it yesterday, I think, in his press conference. Because you actually don't know any of them, and you don't want to alienate your teammates before you meet them. But it's usually you don't hear those things from Theo Epstein.
Next one, and this is right along the lines of what we talked about last week with Luis Severino and the Dodgers ace
Kershaw.
Sammy Kershaw is a country star. Clayton Kershaw. General Soreness. Another one right up your alley. What does that mean? Because let me tell you, as a fan, when I hear that, what it means is, crap, man, ain't gonna have him in the rotation this year, or out of the bullpen this year. That's what I hear.
There's a couple things to think about when you hear this. It's used in spring training when you've got a guy like Cabrera or Pedroia coming back, that where they're just trying to get back on their feet and the day-to-day grind is a little bit different. When it's used in any other context, it's a cover for our medical team has absolutely no idea what is wrong with this guy, so we don't want to point to a location.
We've got state-of-the-art medical equipment because we're paying all these guys guaranteed contracts. All right, but and it's telling us we don't have a clue what's wrong. Yes.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No.
In general, though, if you're a fan and you hear that about a pitcher on your team,
do not draft that guy for fantasy.
Are you literally just saying, see you next year, basically?
Well, I'm saying, I told you this already. Anybody that starts out the gate of a baseball season on the DL as a pitcher, it's very hard to find those guys that have good years. It's just because you're literally playing catch up the entire season. You miss a start here, there, one or two, that's fine. But guys that miss April, you never get that clock back.
A relatively new one. Player X had LASIK surgery.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, that's probably pre your time. I mean, that was just becoming mainstream about towards the end of your career. Right?
I can tell you what
Tiger Woods had it, didn't he, around that time? Yeah.
What that means is, yes, his batting practice today might have been the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life, but he's adjusting to LASIK surgery, or he was so bad today, I can't tell you how horrible that was. So I've got to come up with something to make it interesting. And his LASIK, he's just getting he's getting adjusted to his new eyes.
I think I know what this cliche means. We're going to be more aggressive on the base paths. I think I know what this means, but I'm going to wait and have you tell me as the expert first.
Yeah. So that's it. A, yes, they're going to be more aggressive, but B, no one's going to be loafing it down to first base.
Okay.
You're not going to allow. You're going to. Who was it? Joe Madden. When he was in Tampa, he would just pull guys out of the game. No comments, nothing. If you didn't run down to first base, he'd pull you out. That's to make the guys aware that you're watching how they do some of the routine stuff on the bases.
See, I thought you were going to tell me that means this is not a team Earl Weaver would want to manage, because we're not going to. This is not a team where the chicks dig the long ball, so we're going to have to come up, fight, scratch, and claw to score runs. I thought that's what it actually meant.
Yeah, well, it depends, because in the smart baseball markets, fans recognize when teams give away outs on the bases.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, old school, like, well, Detroit's a good example. They're smart baseball fans. Mm-hmm. So if you see that your base running was minus 54 runs last year, that's not necessarily fans recognize that, so they want to see less. So you want to see smarter base running, and and you're right, though. It's part of that is. I mean,
when we were a perennial playoff team that era from 06 to 14, the analytics said we were literally the worst base running team in Major League Baseball almost every single year.
Right. And the other thing is, it's part of what you said. We have absolutely nothing whatsoever that will be fun to watch offensively. So I'm going to give you something to look at.
So this is going to be the most expensive game of pickle you've ever paid to see, right? Okay. Number 7, we're going to surprise some people. What's that mean?
That is a group of it's a coaching, it's a manager actually, or a GM, who believes that their roster is they're pissed first off about the preseason polling, right? They don't, because this is generally what you hear from a GM. You won't hear it from a coach as much. You'll hear from a GM who's pissed about the fact that people are saying he had a bad winter, he made bad trades, or a team that doesn't do a whole lot and that didn't finish great last year. Let me think. A Pittsburgh would be a great one, right? Mm-hmm. They were kind of middle of the bottom of the pack last year. They've got some tremendous young talent. They didn't really do a whole lot. That's a team. I think they're going to surprise people. That's the kind of team. And you're also. I've left spring training when I knew my coaches were saying we're going to suck. And I've also left spring training when they've said that we're going to surprise some people, which meant, guys, 81-81 is not who we are.
Right.
And there's a subtle way of saying this, and that's one of them.
Yeah, I would think this is a cliche that has some legitimacy to it, because you probably want to guard against doing anything to raise expectations beyond what you know you're capable of, because nothing pisses, speaking as a fan, nothing pisses us off more than unmet expectations.
1993 in spring training, I remember looking around about 3 weeks in thinking, holy crap.
There's some good players on this team.
We finished last in 92 by a mile, and I'm looking around, and we're all saying, we're really good. Like we're not just, we're real. And we went out, and remember the offseason, the Astros signed Drabek and Swindell, and and we opened up with them and swept them in 3. Mm-hmm. And we're flying home from Houston. I'll never forget it. And we knew that we were probably going to go to the postseason 3 games in.
Wow. That kind of reminds me of what I told you yesterday when we previewed we were going to do this. Sparky Anderson on the last day of Lakeland used to always call back to Michigan and tell his wife where they were going to finish, and he was almost always right, maybe a place off, but he would never tell the media, but he would always be honest with his wife. And he, like, if you go back and read Bless You Boys, he called her at the end of spring training in 1984, told her we're going to win the World Series. Well, that's exactly what they did.
I will tell you this: you were behind the 8 ball as a Tiger, leaving because you had to have spring training in Lakeland.
Now they did just do a mass of renovations down there.
Did, yep.
But you're right; its reputation was pretty morbid, I guess we'll go with.
Going there, I remember seeing Lance Parrish there when I was a really young player.
Wow, number 13 behind the plate.
He was the largest man.
One of the very first weightlifting off-season conditioning guys of that era. Yeah. Number 6, we have great chemistry.
You generally don't hear that one in spring training as much, but that's part of a response when someone asks you why you're so good, and you don't just want to tell everybody, well, because we're better than everybody else.
Right.
And you say that's almost like a hockey-like saying of, I don't want to tell you we're better than everybody else, but we're better than everybody else, and we have great team chemistry.
I'm finally healthy.
That's usually said by a guy the day before he goes on the DL and has Tommy John, I would guess. But no, it's I'll tell you what it is. You would only hear that from a young guy. Mm-hmm. Because a veteran player would never say.
Are you almost worried about jinxing yourself at that point, right?
You're saying,
just don't even talk about it. Yes.
You're side-eyeing the baseball gods at the same time you're saying something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a young guy who's never actually been hurt and has been like sore, and he realizes that the last day you weren't sore was when you were 18.
4 more. Any reference to the game time temperature or the temperature up north?
That's the pregame excuse for I'm going to go 0 for 4 and there's nothing I can do about it. Or I have no chance of getting out of the second inning because I can't pitch in cold weather. Anytime you ever hear a player comment about the weather, bet on the other team, or hopefully your team's going to trade that guy, because both teams have to play in it. And one team it'll play. It's the worst weather in the world to play. Cold, dry weather is the worst weather in the don't let any player tell you any different. Anything else is foolish.
How often would you guys talk about the weather as players?
Oh, all the time. We're little babies. We bitch about it all the time. Like, oh my God, I can't believe it's so. See, the difference was the pitcher. I was never cold because I was always moving. Mm-hmm. And I worked fast, and in cold weather, that was an enormous advantage for me with my team. Was everybody was always on their feet, everybody was moving, I was throwing strikes, umpires were trying to call it, whatever. Because remember something, the only people that have it worse than the players are the umpires, because whatever crappy weather that is, they're not playing in it, they're standing in it.
Right.
And they don't sit down for 9 innings, so they want the game to get over. But you only hear that from losers that are players or loser teams.
The weird injury, meaning it's not a quote or a phrase, but the weird injury, what does that mean when you find out that there's been a weird injury in spring training?
So what that is that is an athlete that lacks self-awareness and doesn't realize that funny's not actually going to be, that story's not going to be funny. It's going to be embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Brian Anderson, who I played with, missed a start because he burnt his hand ironing his shirt.
Yikes.
Yeah. I've had guys miss. I mean, the Joe Kelly story, somebody has to get that shows you that that a lot of these athletes don't have people around them that tell them the truth. Mm-hmm. Because if someone had caught Joe Kelly before that press conference, they would have said, no, you can't say that. You can't tell people you hurt your back cooking. You can't do it because you're making X million dollars a year and nobody's going to believe it. Most of the time, the first thing I hear fans think of is, well, he actually fell down in a strip club, and that's how he hurt his back.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those. But those stories are actually true. I mean, I've heard so many.
Here are some examples in the article. It mentions Corey Hart slicing his foot on a hot tub, Michael Taylor cutting his finger while trying to throw gum away, Hunter Pence falling through a glass door, Elvis Andrus missing time because of arm pain from a new tattoo. Stay in your lane, bro. And Brandon Nimmo getting ill from cooking his chicken improperly.
Tom Seaver pulled me aside in 1992, and he gave me a lecture. And he said, from today forward, you don't ever open a car door. You don't pet a dog. You don't do. And he was dead serious.
Was this surreal having a guy who's a Hall of Famer, one of the giants of your industry, pull you aside, and this is his pep talk? This is his lecture? Don't pet your dog?
It was his. He was basically saying, listen, you're ready to step up and be at the next level. Mm-hmm. Now you need to start paying attention to all the little things. Because I'll give you an example. I'm a model. I like to build models as a hobby. I didn't do it when I played because I had to have an X-Acto knife to do it. And on the off chance that I would cut my hand, and you've seen guys, Bobby Ojeda almost lost a finger gardening, like trimming his hedges. But he said basically, listen, you can pay people to do all those things from here on out. When you're done playing, don't care what you do. But when you slam your hand in the car door, you're going to miss 2 weeks. And that could be the difference between a contract for $15 million per year for 7 years, or a 1 year, $12 million deal. You know
this is like John Travolta, Boy in the Plastic Bubble stuff.
It is. Well, it's not that. Because you're playing a sport. So, but it's recognition of all. I'll give you a great example. Do you not think Cleveland fans are thinking about Trevor Bauer's remote control drone? You know, I mean, so there's a line between stop living your life but there are common sense things.
They're probably thinking a lot about Trevor Bauer's Tinder account, because he's been talking a lot about that recently. Yeah.
Right, but he literally was out of a game because he cut his fingers so badly. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's simple stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, don't pet a dog with your pitch. Well, that just when you think about these things, I'm getting paid an extraordinary amount of money to win games.
All right, final two cliches. We got a minute left. Let's put them together. Pitcher X is learning a new delivery, motion, pitch, etc. And the final one, I'm in the best shape of my life.
Okay, the pitcher X is learning a new delivery is this guy sucks so bad, we have to come up with something until he gets better. And that kind of sends the media off. And I'm in the best shape of my life is a real one. Anytime a baseball player, not another, anytime a baseball player calls attention to his physique, it's the rarity. I always tell people, this is not a body I have. This is a cruel family joke that my dad played on. So is
that the guy you want to draft then, if he's that confident?
Yeah, I mean, the best shape of my life means he's in the best shape of his life.
Okay. Did you ever say to a pitcher, one of your teammates who sucked on the mound, hey, man, you're learning a new cutter, you're learning a new slider?
Oh, no. I was way too honest for that stuff. I was never the guy to tell you things that make you feel better just for the sake of making you feel better when you stunk.
I don't have to be convinced that's true. Yeah, I'm going to take that at face value. Curt, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, man. Good stuff.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.